Oh, yeah. Yeah, excuse me. Yeah, figured that this would be bit early, bit early, 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 early. Yeah. Hey, Minecraft World. Welcome, everyone, to Sea Monster Live number 33. Yeah, so I have no idea if this is going to be a stream where we'll be doing screen share or if I just have to play the video subject matter through speakers on my laptop. Probably the latter, just in case. All right. Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much not expecting this stream to be that long, really. Probably it's like it'll probably be on the shorter end, but we will see. We will see. And we got our guest here, Zim.
I said don't mail just yet. I need to change my thing. Oh no.
What?
No, remember what you told me to change it to? I can change it while we're working through this.
Oh, okay.
There we go. 1 sec.
Okay. All right.
I'm also gonna change the name. I'll do the face and then the name. What are you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right. Doing all right. How about you?
I'm alive.
You're alive.
I'm alive. I'm looking at this right now.
Hey. Yes. Perfect. This is peak.
1 sec, wait. We'll get the name changed too.
Sounds
It's Slop. I love Slop.
Oh, Joe Smo, how you doing? Yeah. So funny you mentioned about what you're looking at right now because this kind of relates to the topic of this stream.
It's the I was about to call him. I was about to say it's the little clown boy's daughter. It's the little. It's the little. It's the little cop boy's daughter.
Yeah.
I know if we ever do a Nosferatu video again, or if Adam ever decides to grow a pair of balls and confront us about the Nosferatu video, since yours was longer, I'll have to do the Nosferatu Wojak I gave you.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Billions
Definitely.
must plague.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got it. I'm good.
Okay.
But how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing all right.
There you go.
Yeah.
Do you want me to pull up the video, or do you want to do it from your end? Because I have it actually up on my side because I wanted to go through it again before we went on for this.
The video pretty much.
Yeah.
We could do the screen share.
I'll screen share from my end. Yeah, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
Share audio, share tab or screen instead. Yeah. Well, let's share my entire screen. Awesome.
All right.
And we're not doing, since it's not since it's not a Zimcast, we don't have to go too fast. We're not going to do YouTubers on speed. I think that's Joe Smo's line.
No.
Is YouTubers on speed? So no, we're good. Okay. But interestingly enough, for context, I actually am sub to this guy. I've always kind of liked some of his content. And I also appreciate the fact that he he also shows in the video that he did get flown out to do an interview and see the movie.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty cool. And yeah, I have I have seen some of his videos. Those videos most of the videos I would say I'm like Thor, where I just be like, I like this one. But I covered him previously for like his Wolfman 2010 video, which which I wouldn't say, as far as like on a technical level, it's not like a terribly made video. It's just it's just that his arguments for why Wolfman 2010 was bad just wasn't convinced.
No, yeah, what's it called? I've never. I'd have to really look into all of his videos, but like I've watched him less and less over the years. But I think he does good stuff. I think for the most part. But let us begin.
Yeah. All right, let me pull it up here. Give it a sec. Here we go. There we go.
Since the mad scientist became ubiquitous to the world of science fiction, it inherently became the genre's biggest cliche, dating back to the sympathetic origins of Victor Frankenstein in Mary Shelley's iconic 1818 Gothic horror about his Eponymous monster, before H.G. Wells introduced a more provocative evil genius angle with his 1896 classic The Island of Dr. Moreau. Of course, it was during the early 1900s era of German Expressionism that we saw the first real cinematic appearance of the archetype that cemented its legacy in Fritz Lang's Metropolis. But since then, it's been exceedingly rare that we get an adaptation or contemporary story that understands the nuance and believability buried beneath the eccentricities of playing God. The mad scientist wasn't just some stylistic choice, it was a stock character modeled around themes of obsession, social isolation, and power, where their desires and ideals become less cerebral and fuel more by emotional gratification, both for good and bad. It was initially quite a philosophical concept, using our increasing social and technical capabilities to not so much define the impossible, as they say, but to invent...
We got Minecraft World coming on.
Minecraft's coming on too? We'll pause it. I want us to keep going a little bit longer because I think there's a point that I do want to make when he gets on.
Okay.
Or not when Minecraft gets on, when we get to a certain point that he says.
But yeah, hi. Zim, you're looking sloppier than ever. What the heck happened?
I just love slop. I'm just a movie fan, guys.
Oh no.
I'm a movie fan.
Him. Adam has injected his parasite.
The Adam site. Well, what's it called? Wait. A parasite of Adam? You mean Hack the Movies?
Yes.
Yes. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
Like I said, fill some emotional desire outside our reach. In a way, it was like adding psychology to a human superpower, such as Seth Brundle in The Fly, or Walter White in Breaking Bad, or hell, even Mark Zuckerberg in The Social Network, where behind their inventions were human motives that lost their nobility as ego took over. The motive, regardless of the morality or delusion behind it, was always inherently selfish. You could even say, while not a terrific film, the 2002 adaptation of H.G. Wells' other sci-fi classic, The Time Machine, reworked its central protagonist around the compelling motive of trying to use his machine to save his girlfriend from death, only to fail every time, playing into our natural human fallibility where the mad scientist can only go so far. While most adaptations of the mad scientist tend to devolve into the man whose motives drive him to madness trope, as depicted in H.G. Wells' original version of The Invisible Man, Leigh Whannell's complete reimagining of the story gives new meaning to the monster behind the madness, by taking attention away from the character itself and placing all its emphasis on the impact that person had on those around them. So let's talk about what makes The Invisible Man more than just another rehash of a forgotten, underrealized cliche.
Well, I would say my point would be, at that point, it's not even taking the cliche, because in no way is I'm just gonna call him Invisicuck while I'm on here. The Invisicuck isn't really a scientist at all. Like, all we know about him is that he's just a terrible, abusive person. So like, he's not even anywhere close to the archetype. And the only
But it's
reason
not
why
even-
we know he's
yeah.
a genius is because he has access to the suit that he made, which none of that really goes into any detail. We don't know anything about it at all. Like,
Yeah.
remove the suit, there, like, you lose any idea or like any essence of him being close to the mad scientist trope.
Yeah,
And
he's
As
kind
well
of
as
he's
being a
less
mad
of a
scientist
scientist.
implies he was a good person beforehand too.
I would argue.
Yeah.
I would also posit the film is trying to be of a different perspective of someone who is following what's happening in a similar way to what Dracula did, like the original version of Dracula in style, but it fails on that front considering we are very well acquainted with the person whom we are following, and that person is well acquainted with our main antagonist. So the sense of who it is, as well as just the general story, doesn't work in that regard. If what I'm saying
Yeah,
makes
he's
sense.
less of a mad scientist and more of like essentially
Invisible.
like if Tony Stark was evil, let's just say. Like he was
Again,
like
he's just the Invisicuck. He's
So,
for some reason extremely
well-
infatuated with a woman who is beyond mid for reasons other than a undescribed god complex. And the only reason why this works is because, hey guys, it's a story about abuse, and because it's a very touchy subject, people are immediately going to side with the victim logically, which kind of undersells any of the terror that would actually go into any of this.
Nor any nuance that the story may or may not have.
Well, I don't even think that
And
they
actually,
try to
that's
care about
debatable. I
nuance at all.
retract. Actually, I retract that. That's debatable.
Almost anytime people do a story about abuse, rarely is there ever any actual nuance to that at all. Like almost always abuse stories are built around the catharsis of confronting your abuser. So like even then I would say that there's no real complexity or nuance there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's not to say you can't try, but
You can try, but this video contains self-delete references.
Did you have this like sped up or is it at normal speed?
It is at 1.5 times speed.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's not two times speed.
I guess like yeah, I mean like I guess the preamble bit would, kind of like, it takes took a bit of time, pretty much, but
Yeah.
maybe have it get to normal speed from here on, cuz we've just gone through that. Yeah.
It's very rare that a film surpasses my expectations, yet here we are. I think Leigh Whannell set himself on a very unique path as a filmmaker following his incredibly underrated sci-fi body horror Upgrade in 2018. What I loved about that film was that it never felt constrained to one particular genre.
Did anyone else see this movie? I think I saw it like
I've heard of it. I knew it exists. I haven't seen it.
because
I
I
have
like,
watched-
vaguely remember some of those scenes from this movie.
Yeah, I've watched Upgrade. It's pretty damn good actually. Like I don't
Interesting.
Oh, okay.
And also,
Yeah.
I'm just working on some homework right now. So
Okay.
while
That's
doing
fine.
this.
Self-control. At times, it was scary, shocking, thrilling, funny, poignant. It was comfortable just being its own thing, detached from any sort of expectation for what the film was going to be, and thus it avoided the pitfalls of trying to pander or appease a specific kind of audience. While The Invisible Man isn't as wildly inventive and clearly has a certain audience in mind, on a surface level you can see it as a minimalist suspense thriller that wastes no time getting to the eerie core of what makes a danger you physically cannot see work on a pure visceral level, yet underneath is an unpretentious back to basic.
I heavily disagree that this film is unpretentious. I think this film is exceptionally pretentious.
I'd probably say maybe not super pretentious, but it is a little bit, somewhere here and there.
It's been quite a bit since I last saw it, but from what I remember, yeah, there was a semi-decent amount of pretentiousness.
It
Yeah.
is very much pretentious type of slop.
Yeah, and even then, like pretentiousness on its own wouldn't necessarily be like that huge of an issue. It's just that there is like the film sadly doesn't really have quite as much in the way of like solid enough writing to really back it up. Really,
Like when it comes, like most media critiques, it all comes down to execution.
exactly.
Show don't tell approach to psychological storytelling with a modernized take on the classical mad scientist trope that leans into very relevant domestic fears.
I just want to go back real quick because he says
Show don't tell approach to psychological storytelling with a modernized take on the classical mad scientist trope that
yeah, so it's right there. What would you say makes up a modernized portrayal of a mad scientist trope based on this movie? Because like I can't really think of like other examples of a modern mad scientist that would be comparable to this movie and how they portray a mad scientist.
Yeah, like I don't really. Yeah, this is kind of the part of this video that was kind of making me threw me off here a little bit. Where it's like I can't really say that there's a mad scientist element to him because it's not like he's inflicting the invisibility onto himself and it's having unintended consequences. Like it's a suit that he could just take off and put on, at his own leisure and activate and deactivate, like it's optional. Like he's not forced to go invisible other than, to if he wants to, essentially keep spying on and following Cecilia.
Yeah, not to mention the fact that like he showed Hollow Man earlier in this movie, which I think does the kind of like not necessarily abusive, but like character who kind of had weird quirks to begin with, change because of their visibility. And the other thing is that like the most we can say about the dude being a scientist is the fact that Invisicuck pioneered this technology, which is all explained in exposition, rather than us actually seeing what it is that he does that actually allowed him to perfect this kind of technology.
Yeah, and it's not like there's a point where the film is, has characters go like, "Wow, this guy was a madman. What was he like? Creating this crazy technology that could essentially make him into some sort of godhood in a sort of way." But it's like playing God. But it's like there's nothing like that suggested in this movie, really.
Yeah, because the only reason why he uses the invisible suit is just so that he could mess with this one woman, which again, the reasons why that are given in the film are exceptionally flimsy.
Yeah,
leads into very relevant domestic fears. It works greatly to its benefit that Universal abandoned the whole shared universe BS involving all the classical monsters and having Johnny Depp in the titular role, because it allows Winnell to tell a much more grounded story that takes the essence of a 50s, 60s Hitchcockian thriller, evolving into a 70s, 80s real-world slasher. In a way, like with DC...
I mean, like, sure, I guess. But, well, then... the problem is that we kind of already, like, I guess if we're talking about Hitchcock, there is the idea that, like, the audience knows the bomb is under the table, but the characters in the story don't, and that's part of the thrills. I guess that is a fair comparison, but there is very little that this film does to, like, invoke that Hitchcock type of style, outside of maybe one or two scares. But the devolving into the like 80s slasher it doesn't have the gore or the creative kills that you see in those films, and it doesn't have really any of the aesthetics that also draw people to that style of horror movie.
Yeah, the most that you could say that this film would potentially, be akin to in regards to like the slasher genre is like how like the original Halloween from 1978 by John Carpenter kind of like spends like a lot of time building up to when like Michael Myers like kill somebody while he's like stalking them without them realizing it. Like that. I mean, if he was like using that as an example for the approach that the Invisible Man 2020 was going for, then yeah, that'd be one thing.
But if we look at Michael Myers, if we look at the original Halloween, the thing that made Myers terrifying, outside of the fact that like he did want to kill a specific person, was the fact that like he also affected a whole bunch of other people in a way that showed him as a devastating force. Whereas the only like reason why Invisicuck is threatening is because of the fact that his brother's in on it. So as a result, he's able to appear more threatening than he actually is, which I think is the point of the film, is to show like he's a terrible person, he uses other people, but like without all his fancy technology, he's just a big bully. And you know, we do the bullies, we beat them. Don't you guys feel so good about yourselves? I don't think the Invisible Man respects the danger that its killer has, whereas Halloween does.
Yeah, and just to be clear, like, you know, the whole thing of Michael Myers, like what made him so scary in the original, that understandably, like the David Gordon Green films, like tried to get back to, is that what made Michael Myers scary and why his kill when he kills or stalks his prey essentially is like so riveting and so suspenseful and frightening, is because we don't really understand. Is the lack of understanding of why he's doing it in the first place, other than with Dr. Loomis's speech monologue about him just being evil, and you know, like like simple as that. Like we don't we can't understand. Like he's kind of something that's a little more, you know, like less defined, less like harder to understand than something like something to comprehend than something like Adrian Griffin in Invisicuck. Who, you know, like his motivation is essentially like laid out before us, you know, from the start of the movie, from the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I would also like to draw the comparison to Nosferatu, because horror can absolutely make you know the monster's motive, you know what it wants, work. And Nosferatu did that phenomenally, where it showed us exactly what Orlok wanted at the start of the film and during the first act, and the tension is preventing him from getting what he wants.
Yeah, and the film doesn't betray that, or you know, and it doesn't betray that, you know, all that, you know, and it's executed really well.
The film also makes it very clear just how dangerous Orlok really is, and Orlok's demise don't come from like being like, oh, we're just better than you, and I want you to admit it that you're just in love with this woman and you can't get laid, meh. Whereas this film is essentially that at the end. It's essentially a lecture and then a murder, which I would say even this video has a questionable read on that, but let's keep going.
Get there.
Yeah. Also, hi, Lau.
Their properties.
Hi.
Giving filmmakers creative freedom to make their own personal standalone films with a beginning, middle, and something that's becoming increasingly rare these days, an actual ending. Under the Blumhouse model, The Invisible Man strips away that studio artifice, that phony manufactured feeling, leaving you with a film that is truly sincere in its storytelling. Hell, I actually sat down with writer-director Leigh Whannell and producer Jason Blum and asked them what they thought was the benefit of working with a low budget as opposed to the $100+ million effects heavy star part crap that came before it.
Especially for scary movies and for thrillers, when you take away the special effects and the stunts and all the production value, the filmmaker really has to focus on, to me, what is always the scariest thing, which is character and drama and story, because it just works on a very human level.
If you've ever seen any of my videos, you'll know that this is a philosophy I completely side with. Interestingly, the film isn't actually about the Invisible Man. In fact, he's both figuratively and, well, literally absent for a good majority of the film, instead shifting the perspective onto Elizabeth Moss's character Cecilia, who is the victim to the Invisible Man's sinister antics. The story begins with Cecilia escaping her abusive relationship with Adrian Griffin, our titular Invisible Man. They're hearing that he committed suicide, only for Cecilia to suspect that he's found a way to use his scientific expertise in optics to turn invisible.
I do want to say one thing that I don't know if you've mentioned before, but like honestly, I find the beginning of the movie way more tense before he turns invisible when she's escaping from the house, than anything that
Yeah.
comes afterwards.
Yeah,
I definitely understand that. I don't, because it's so early into the film, and because of how the trailers set him up as the Invisible Man, and we realized this was all going to be a story about abuse. I was under like no illusion that like we'd start to see little inklings happen, and I think that that's fine. But the problem is that the more we get into the story, building off of that tension that could have been there never happens, and she just makes dumb decision after dumb decision.
Yeah, true. I mean, if only that she was able to like kind of like carry over like whatever like intelligent decision making that she did at the start of the film, like carried over for the rest of it, especially when it becomes all the more and more clear to her that Griffin is like trying to gaslight her into making her look like a crazy person to everybody, to her loved ones.
Or the fact that she acts like a crazy person the entire time, and a lot of what she could have said, she could have just explained them in a much more like honest and calm way, instead of like blaming it on her boyfriend that she believes killed himself. Not the easiest sell. Like, oh, you sent all these like hurtful emails to me. How could you? I've literally been here and here this entire time. I can literally show you, or I'd be like, hey, like I'm gonna call this place. Like, wasn't I just here at this time and this time? Yeah. Not to mention it's took place in 2020, so you also be like, well, where did it say my emails were sent to? If I sent them from my phone, then it would say sent from my phone, which is like the basic setup for like a lot of these types of emails and things of that nature. And it's like, well, it says was sent from my computer. I didn't bring my computer with me, and that would probably put her on side way quicker. Could also put them in the line of danger quicker, since because she's being smart, the Visakuk realizes that, oh wow, she's actually being smart. I have to up my game a little bit, and the story changes from there. But with what we see, it's just bad.
Yeah, basically, there's no escalation. I mean, there's an escalation in severity of what he does, but he's always doing the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's escalation, and then she escalates emotionally instead of responding in a way that's logical, which could escalate in a proper way.
Your disbelief, but the story never lets sci-fi nitpicky pedantics get in the way of the character drama, which, as every single review will inevitably point out, is basically an allegory for domestic abuse. Thankfully, it doesn't go down the snooty auteur angle of commentating on abuse, when Nell is very honest and respectful about channeling concepts of abuse to make the Invisible Man more terrifying, focusing on his filmmaking strengths and letting Elizabeth Moss inject the emotional trauma of a victim feeling perpetually isolated as she struggles to get people to believe her.
I'm not the best person to say what the movie's about, because I wrote it. So I'm the least qualified to say what it's about, whereas the audience, they'll tell you what it's about. And it's always fascinating to hear people's opinions. I love it when filmmakers take credit. Like you'll hear an interviewer say, you concentrate a lot on mirrors in your films. And clearly the director has never thought about that in his or her life. And they'll always say, yes, I do. Yes, I do. Mirrors are big for me. That's a big thing because you see your face in them. It's your true self. Yes.
So, like, I respect the honesty if the honesty is genuine. I know for me, a problem I always have is this idea that a lot of like these interviews are always kind of set up ahead of time, and the questions are always vetted so that like interviewers aren't thrown off guard and things of that nature. So that's one problem I have. Like if this is like genuine, like what his response was going to be, and like he didn't know what this question, like this was going to be thrown his way, like cool. But if not, it comes off just as artificial as the people he's criticizing.
Yeah, it's kind of like, I'm not sure what you think of like how like, oh, the writer is pretty much like the least qualified to say what the story that he's writing is about, and say like that's up to the audience. Like, I'm not sure what I'm not sure what everyone's stance is on that. It's I hate that entirely.
I mean, that's essentially like the Invisicuck of the movie. He's cucking to Death of the Author, where the idea, because you're creating a product that is like going to be observed by people, the meaning that is drawn from it is from the viewers who you're giving it to. As a result, their intent has greater weight, and I think that's not, it's, I think, is the worst precedent to have. And I think with so much literary analysis these days stems from this idea. And I believe that when it comes to media that you're creating, you as the author have an idea of what this film means and what like any story means, and whether or not the audience's like idea and their perception of it aligns with yours, I think that is a better metric as to whether or not you were successful with your vision than people just coming away with whole new interpretations of your film. And I think that in a lot of ways, it's true that audience members can pick up on something and have a whole interpretation that the author can agree with, and they didn't even realize it. But I think that's separate from the idea that it's what the viewer makes of it is what the actual meaning behind a film is.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, like I would say there's definitely like there has to be like a good balance that you have to have like between like Death of the Author should absolutely kind of be applied pretty much, you know, and it's obviously on a case-by-case basis pretty much. It's like, okay, like did the author like succeed in what they were trying to do, what they were trying to say, or is it just kind of like the author pretty much thought that they had something going on in there, but the audience was like, nah, I mean, we get, I know that's what you're saying, but that's not what we're seeing here, you know, like,
Yeah. Kind of like with 500 Days of Summer, like everyone sees it like a different way, but on top of everything, then you have the writer who sees it in a completely different way, and he actually changed the things he said about his own movie over time, basically to adapt to what the audience thought. Or King Kong, you know, like it's like I like monkeys, and everyone is like slavery. You know?
Yeah.
That one's still frustrating.
That one's
one's
just become funny to me.
I don't even find it frustrating. Like I think it's soothing. Like I get it, but people shouldn't just assume that because something fits, it was the intention. But
or Godzilla being representative of the West.
Oh yeah. Oh god, that would be worse.
Yeah, and that whole thing with King Kong there, you know, that is kind of an instance where, like, yeah, like there is like a little more nuance to be like, we can't just like we shouldn't necessarily have to be like, oh no, 100% Death of the Author, absolutely, totally, all the way there. But at the same time, it's better to have to take Death of the Author into some consideration as opposed to. I don't know how familiar you guys with like that little EFAP debate with Twin Perfect, you know, where there is a point where that guy, you know, relating to his, you know, when he was trying to defend the Snyderverse, he said like, I believe 0% in Death of the Author, and it's like really, so because
you said Twin Perfect, that was his name.
Yeah, Twin Perfect, yeah. They were EFAP was covering some of his videos, like, and this debate came up when they were in the middle of their coverage on his like BVS video. And he said you should always what he said was like you should always like take into consideration what the storyteller is like trying to do, and so on and so on. Like it's like a crazy like back and forth debate.
I'll say this because I have not watched all of EFAP's stuff, and I try to pick out ones like based on title that I find interesting. But I might listen to that one tonight because I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean you don't have to listen to the whole. Yeah, not necessarily the whole stream, but there is like a clipped out portion of it where that debate happens from that stream. So
the one from Trisket, who did it?
Twin Perfect.
Trisket, he took it as a highlight.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Yeah. One thing I do want to say about the Death of the Author thing, I partially agree with that sentiment, considering Death of the Author would be considering understanding what the authorial intent was behind a piece of media would work, helps when illustrating whether or not something does or doesn't work. or for research purposes as to the decisions made. So yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Just to highlight a
definitely
question
awkward.
before. Yeah. Just to highlight a
Yes.
question before we move on. Do we agree that Wolfman 2010 is the best reboot or remake of Universal Monsters in recent years? Yes, I agree now.
I have yet to see it. I still need to watch that.
I would say yeah.
Yeah.
I was about to say Nosferatu, but no, Nosferatu is not Universal Monsters Universal. That's just a monster movie, vampire movie remake. So
Yeah,
good one.
it's an
A good
adaptation
one,
of
but,
Dracula, but it's not an adaptation of that version of Dracula. It's just
I would say
yeah.
that I would say the Wolfman is the best adaptation of the Universal Monsters, while Nosferatu is the best remake of a classic
monster.
movie. Yeah, classic
Yeah.
monster in general.
yeah, pretty much.
I need to get the extended edition on Blu-ray. I need to get that.
Oh, I
Since-
watched
Typically-
it like all the time. Yeah, it should be like online super easily.
Okay, that works too. I'll see if I can find it, and then I might give it a rewatch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways,
Film goes beyond just that voyeuristic peeping Tom stalker execution that came out of the countless films that inspired the genre. At first, yeah, the suspense is completely built around not knowing if the Invisible Man is there, but more subtly, just because you don't see him doesn't mean he's not there, and vice versa. It makes you legitimately question what you see in front of you. You get trapped in the same claustrophobic shoes as Cecilia. A lot of the time, the camera just sits there, and the negative space it presents has you darting around the screen for clues. At times, it's admittedly a bit tedious, but it helps reinforce tangibility to Cecilia's vulnerability and the post-traumatic stress the abuse has left her with. The thing about Adrian is that despite less than a few minutes of screen time, he leaves a genuinely menacing impression that's carried in Moss's harrowing performance.
I think that only happens if you have like an abusive personal experience. To be fair, like he feels like an unhinged person, but like in a normal level. I don't feel like he leaves a mark on your subconscious. You know, like when you think of horror villains, you don't think of this guy, but you know, maybe that's when the themes that he mentioned at the beginning will come in. Maybe he has like a personal thing, and this resonated way too much with him.
I know, like for me, like the thing is that the only thing that Adrian really does is that he acts unhinged and he just has like these long stares and stuff like that. Outside of that, he doesn't really have a menacing kind of performance. And the problem too is that because the film doesn't do enough to really make it clear who is in the suit at what point of time, there isn't like a whole lot of like body language or certain actions that you could do that that could like be like, this one is Adrian and this one's the other Invisicuk. It's very much
his brother.
Yeah, like if for example, if the brother was the one who was more messing around with stuff around the house and doing the smaller things to get under his skin, while Adrian was the more physically dominating one, and you saw him like attacking her, throwing her around, you know for a fact that was him inside the suit, that could then be an interesting dynamic, because now that he like no one's gonna believe the fact that like an invisible person attacked her, he's able to just kind of go all out. And if they like alluded more to her physical, like him physically abusing her, then that could be interesting and stuff like that. But the film doesn't.
Yeah, because the brother
sorry.
No, keep going. It's fine.
Okay. Even then, it's like if the whole point of like Adrian like trying to like get back control over her is because the fact that he knows that she's pregnant, pretty much, or assuming that he's even aware of this the whole time because he swapped the medications that she was taking, her birth control meds and what have you, for something else. Like, why would he risk any sort of potential damage to like the unborn child by just throwing her around. Like if it was the brother who's doing it, then that'd be one thing. But the film doesn't really make it clear as to who's supposed to be doing what, because they're both essentially like, the film does kind of have it be where they're both essentially like being physically capable of like knocking people down, but it seemed like Adrian seems to be like the more competent of the two, considering that he mops the floor with like the asylum guards, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Tom, we only see him like go after, as far as definitively know, Tom goes after like Storm Reed, the girl that Zim's using an avatar of. Yeah, and her dad, whom he just gets the drop on anyways.
Mm-hmm. But anyways,
Hell don't show works to the film's benefit because, like the supporting characters, your understanding of Cecilia's relationship with Adrian comes solely from her retelling her experiences. You don't see the abuse that happens behind closed doors, and it plays perfectly into Adrian being famous and prolific for his charismatic tech-savvy genius, but infamous to his silent victims who knew him as a master manipulator obsessed with power and control.
outside of the fact that that we know the dude has this big company, like no one really talks about his inventions, like at all. Like that could really add to the mad scientist quirk of him, where like if more people knew about the fact that he was this famous inventor, and like people recognized her as like an old fling or something like that, that could add to like her isolation, to where like people could like would know that like maybe they separated, and maybe people might like hate her because the dude seemingly committed suicide and she left him. So like there's a lot of stuff you could play with the aspect of him being part of this big company, but like all they really do is just set him up as terrible, rich, evil, abusive man. So
And also,
yeah, and even then, like the whole scene.
Oh, sorry. Keep going. It's fine.
And even then, like the whole thing of like him having this technology be supposedly secret, even that's kind of like thrown out the window when if you looked closely to the article that tells of like his suicide, like it meant the details in that article mentioned that he was working on like optic, something involving optics, pretty much. So like there's already like some stuff there where people will be like, oh, he was working on some piece of tech that is like optical refraction or something like that, you know, which could indicate so someone could be like invisible to the naked eye, something like that. Like if it's public knowledge at this point, then then the whole thing of like this being a secret or like that would just mean that Adrian's just relying on people just not knowing how to read, not do basic research of Googling what his company does or what he does, like what his role in the company is and what it was that him and his company worked on as of late, before his supposed suicide.
Mm-hmm.
Also, what I wanted to say is that you can even use the fact that he's like this huge inventor to reflect this isolation she feels, expanding on what Sin was saying. You know, manipulators or gaslighters or this kind of people normally make everyone think that you're a piece of shit. And normally they are also beloved by everyone. And that's something that Ryan is also saying in his video. But imagine if this guy was someone who created stuff that saved lives, right? So a bunch of people fucking love him. They owe their lives to him. And that's why they hate her even more, because they blame her for his death. This guy that was basically going to like cure cancer, like they could have done a lot with it. Like even for what they were trying to do, making him a great inventor will have been even better.
Yeah. The problem is that they don't want to like my perspective on it is that doing something like that would make him appear somewhat sympathetic, and as a result, the filmmakers don't want to do that. So as a result, they have to make him as irredeemable as possible for their story to make sense. And as a result, any nuance that could be gleaned from the story is immediately lost. And unless you're completely on board with this story, then like there really isn't anything for you.
Yeah,
like, from my perspective.
Yeah, which is kind of unfortunate because even like the even like that more recent Wolfman movie that Leigh Whannell did, there's like even that film like was able to have some nuances as far as like the title monster, pretty much, where it's just like, okay, these are obviously not bad people really. It's just that they're afflicted with this unfortunate, like, horrific sort of disease type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That
or the
turns them
fact that
monsters.
like the idea of generational trauma, which is like old hat at this point, where his father being a two-dimensional, abusive, angry father who turns his kid into a generic angry father figure is I don't think this dude has good writing at all. So
So yeah.
Mhm.
Even though you don't see a lot of what happened in the relationship, we needed to be very, very clear about what had actually gone down, because ultimately you end up with this sort of menacing presence throughout the movie. We needed to be very, very specific about what Adrian was like with Cecilia, and the torment that and damage that he caused.
It's far more psychological than physical. The first half of the film is Cecilia trying to prove Adrian is still alive, as he spends most of the time just fucking with her and trying to turn others against her by making her look...
Again, the fact that no one picked up on this not being Adrian is crazy to me.
Crazy, like assaulting her friend's daughter or sending vicious emails from her account. It makes Cecilia feel like a danger herself, and because there's this lingering notion that she feels indirectly and unfairly responsible for his death, because even in death he can still control her, so to speak, it adds a crippling weight to her character, that even though she's the victim who might not have any physical proof of his abuse, she's always living under his domineering shadow. But if I'm to go any further with this, I'm going to have to talk about the second half of the story, so spoiler alert to anyone who wants to stop this video now and come back later, or if you're just curious enough, stick around, but to those that don't, once again, spoiler alert.
Go nuts.
To find evidence that Adrian is invisible, Cecilia returns home to discover Adrian...
You mean breaks into his house? Not returns home, breaks into his house.
...developed entirely of micro cameras that look like these creepy eyes, and takes it to her sister in a public setting where, in a very sudden and genuinely shocking surprise, the Invisible Man cuts her sister's throat, leaving Cecilia to take the blame while everybody witnesses. After being placed in a mental hospital, it reintroduces another manipulative angle that's already lingering in the background from earlier in the story. Adrian has a brother who almost breaks down sympathizing with Cecilia regarding Adrian's abusive behavior towards him as well. But the thing is, while he has all the red flags of shady motherfucker, because after all, he's the sibling lawyer of the villain, the performance he gives really sells you on the idea that maybe not everyone is who you think they are, like how Adrian's legacy is that of innovative genius, not domestic abuser. It was one of those uncertainties where I genuinely was unsure how to feel about his character, whether it was throwing a bunch of curveballs only to go back on itself, or maybe he was genuinely sympathetic. Of course, just for clarity, he is actually going back on himself, and it's revealed that the brothers are in cahoots the entire time to force Cecilia into giving birth to Adrian's child, and that the lawyer brother has a duplicate suit in which to allow the Invisible Man to be in two places at once. It plays perfectly in line with the film's depiction of manipulation and abuse, which is then
pause for a sec.
against it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just so we're not like playing like whole chunks of the video, you know. Because,
Yeah,
like,
no,
we're
it's
not
no problem.
Yeah,
The one thing I
yeah.
wanted to say was that like I'm like gonna be honest, the moment that character was introduced, I was like, he's definitely gonna be in on it some way, somehow. Like if you look at the characters that are actually portrayed as sympathetic in this movie versus those that aren't, and there's so few actual like characters with names and stuff that are relevant to the story, I knew from the second that the brother was introduced that it was all an act and that he'd be in cahoots one way or another. So I don't think that like it played into the strengths of the film at all. If not, it just highlights more of the faults of the film.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
like the
like
whole
I
thing.
didn't really think that it was that obvious. Like honestly, I work in customer service and I like all the fucking time. So like I was like, he might be just doing his job. Like it could be one of those things where you're supposed to think that he is and then he's not. Like it could go either way.
I think it could go either way, but in the context of a film where you aren't dealing with like day-to-day people, and like in a person's experience from day to day, everyone is kind of a character in the story of that day. In this film, really you just have cop friend's daughter, sister, Mid herself, the Invisicock 1 and the Invisicock 2. There really isn't too much other like major characters that would have impacts on the story. And as a result, like you hyper focus on the characters who have names and have more to do in the story than not. And as a result, by the end of the film, even when we knew that the brothers were in on it, it's not surprising, and like it could have gone either way. But for me, all I really needed was one confirmation one way or the other, and I just so happened to be right, and it's not surprising.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like the whole nuances about how like Tom was like, "Oh, I hate," yeah, pretty much like I hated him. It's like you could like in some way, like you could say like, especially when Cecilia kind of like gets under his skin by saying he's like he's like a jellyfish version of Adrian, where he's like he's like his brother but without minus the spine, pretty much. Like yeah, I mean, like what? So Tom kind of maybe sort of like being like a little like expressive, like he pretty much never really cared for Adrian, really, or at least like he had like some animosity towards Adrian, but not enough to just be like, nah, fuck you, dude, I'm not gonna be in on this. Like there is like a little bit of like inferiority complex to him, I guess.
Yeah. Well, no, they I mean, they emasculate both brothers by the end of the movie, where she verbally kind of calls him out, and then she ends up murdering him at the end of the movie. So,
well, I mean, Tom just kind of played himself essentially, in the earlier scene where he's talking with Cecilia, in his office, pretty much.
Yeah. But like, I knew, like from the beginning, it was all just like I was like, oh, okay, that's how this movie's going. Same as usual.
The brothers in how it resolves the conflict. For context, after escaping the hospital and killing Adrian's brother, it turns out Adrian set the whole thing up to make it look like his brother kidnapped him and so on, so that he can miraculously come back to life to be with Cecilia.
Yeah.
Generic climactic fight, it actually ends with an intimate dinner scene where Cecilia asks him to admit that he was invisible this entire time, having a hidden microphone as her cop friend listens outside. He gives her this hint that she recognizes, confirming his presence, and upon visiting the bathroom, she uses the duplicate suit to cut his throat as revenge. It's gratifyingly twisted because...
No, it's not gratifyingly twisted. It's just twisted. You just murdered someone. And you have a cop friend outside who can bring this man to justice. But instead, you decide to take matters into your own hands and murder him. And instead of the film condemning this like they do for his actions and his brother's actions, they kind of just leave it ambiguous. And I think that is one of the worst moral failings of the film.
Yeah, I mean, the film doesn't even doesn't even for the last third of this movie, like from when Cecilia knowing that she's pregnant, like she pretty much willing to risk cutting her wrist just to try to get Adrian, just to provoke Adrian so that she can attack him, all the way to this whole thing at the end of the film. Like, it'd be one thing if the film was at least trying to be a little nuanced by having it be just kind of be morally gray, whereas it's like, yeah, she's taking these extreme steps that are pretty bad, that would definitely look pretty bad in isolation, but it's all for the intent to stop a worse thing, pretty much, like Adrian and Tom. But it's but yeah, the film doesn't really do that. It doesn't present these things as morally gray, which which they absolutely should have, because
Exactly.
because the unborn child, like faking a suicide attempt, pretty much, that it's like that kind of puts the unborn baby like in danger, who's like completely innocent in this whole thing.
Yeah.
She's able to use his own manipulative powers against him and exploit his own clumsiness that's evident throughout the film. She plays into the conflict of abuse with no evidence.
Yeah.
She makes it look like a suicide and leaves her cop friend nervously submitting to her claims that it was a suicide because that's all that can be proven. I'm only telling you the plot to encapsulate how the theme of abuse and power struggle comes full circle in the end, and that the film never results to a dull, generic conclusion. It ends on a poetic note that makes Adrian look like a victim to his own abuse, his own obsession that everything he wanted was never going to be his, because at the end of the day, he isn't God. He isn't as in control as he thinks. His supposed superpower is still dictated by common human weakness.
Well, human weakness, I'd say less human weakness and more the plot being stupid and therefore allowing him to be murdered and then never commenting on it. But
Yeah. And I mean, I wanted to
the last
say,
bit is the last bit's just the Patreon there. So I think we're on that.
yeah. I wanted to make some comments about the whole thing of the fact that he was clumsy, leaving his phone there. It's just like okay, unless you were intending to do that, how did you let that happen? Or
no, exactly. Yeah.
And what else? There was another point. The fact he probably said the whole thing of Adrian setting up to where he faked his own suicide and having it turn out that he was held hostage by Tom the whole time. The logistics of all that, it's so convoluted. That's it would take a miracle for a lot of that to play out the way it does.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of conveniences, to be relied on for his plan to work.
Yeah, no, exactly. But is to be expected. But
yeah,
who has to head out because I need to be somewhere soon. It's going to take a
All
little
right.
drive, so I appreciate you coming on to talk more about the invisible slop. And thank you guys in the audience and in the stream to talk about this. And I'm excited for this weekend. This is gonna be a fun weekend.
Don't you also have a stream tonight?
I have a stream tonight too. Everyone stay tuned for that as well at 9.
Yeah.
I believe 9 or 9:30, one of the two. It's probably gonna be 9:30, but if I get home earlier than I'm expecting, then the stream starts earlier. We'll see how it works.
All right.
But yeah,
all right.
Peace, guys.
Thanks for coming on. I'll see you soon.
See ya.
Yeah. Well, all right. So, what did you guys think of the video?
I can't really comment much because it's been quite a while since I've seen The Invisible Man, but yeah, that was one of the videos of all time.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty cool. I mean, it's cool that he was able to have to do the interviews pretty much with Leigh Whannell and Jason Blum, pretty much. But,
and I like to see people do that, when people have directly talked with the people who worked on the stuff.
And he also interviewed the actor who plays Adrian Griffin. That's it's pretty cool. I'm not even sure how big his channel is actually. Let me find out. Just so
I just wanted to say, for example, I really believe that he actually liked it. I don't think that he did or said the things he said just because he interviewed them. I don't think it has an influence, but I think that he actually really, really connected with the movie. Which that's nice.
I kind of think that the interview may have may have sort of played a part into him being very positive about the film, but I mean, yeah, it is definitely one of the videos of all time. I mean, it's a fine video. It's just that it's decently put together, pretty much. But it is just kind of it's one of those things where it's as far as like a review for the text of the film, it's kind of like I mean,
Yeah.
there isn't really much to say in terms of like.
I mean, just look at the runtime of this stream.
Yeah.
It's not even,
I mean,
we're just a few seconds under an hour. So
yeah. I mean, to be fair, we fast forwarded a decent chunk of the. Well, Zim kind of had it like a higher speed playback speed.
Yeah, but even without that, that's still, we breezed through pretty much everything that there needed to be. So
yeah, I mean,
the thing is, the movie is not that complex. Like as he said, like it has some themes of abuse, but it's not really trying to say much about it. It's just kind of using it, and then if you relate to it, you will see way more in the movie than someone that doesn't feel that has.
Oh, so it looks like he apparently has 745K subscribers, which not bad, pretty good, not too bad. But like it's unfortunate that the movie isn't as nuanced with the themes that's trying to tell, as it actually does, because like there's like so much nuance you could have done with this film, really.
All you had to do was remove the abuse aspect, probably. You could have hints of it, but maybe focus on something else. Or just add a couple things.
It's just the unfortunate thing is like the fact that this movie was written and made like during a time where that was like where the whole Me Too movement sort of stuff, like that was like a huge sort of talking point, and I would say that there's like other examples out there, even from from Blumhouse included, that have like done this a little better, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
Like Halloween 2018, I would say, like where that film actually plays into like the foundation of the original film by just kind of building off of like how like Laurie Strode's experience from 1978, her encounter with Michael Myers had kind of like fucked her in the head, essentially, and kind of messed things up for her family relations. But I will say, like, just a kind of maybe a slight digression, not too much. I will say I was pretty surprised. Like, it's more about Wolfman, the Leigh Whannell version, Blumhouse version. I was pretty surprised how not well that movie performed, even for a Blumhouse horror picture. Like, it had like it did not do well.
I think the design reveal early on didn't help.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and the word of mouth.
For the 5 people who, like word of mouth mostly, but also like the design is something that mostly affected people who maybe have a relation to like werewolf movies, that are interested in that. I don't know if it affected like the general audience. It's just that the movie is really mid.
Yeah.
So below average.
The movie had the budget of like Wolfman 2025 had the budget of $25 million. And I mean, you could probably double it, for marketing, or like maybe add like a few million more for the marketing. Its box office is only 34.8 million, and I think it may have left theaters by now because it's not like it did. It's not like it had a lot of staying power, apparently.
Yeah.
Which compared to The Invisible Man, it had a $7 million budget, only $7 million, and with marketing, you double that, so probably like 15 million.
Yeah.
And even though it came out in 2020, and even though like the pandemic happened, like it made 144.5 million. So Invisible Man 2020 was really successful, financially speaking.
I was going to bring up Nosferatu for a different comparison, since both released around the same time. Nosferatu's budget was 50 million, and it grossed roughly 170 million worldwide.
I would say it's like
95
100.
million.
Yeah, it's probably like 179 million, maybe closer to 180 million. So
Yeah, around
Yeah.
there. It was around there.
yeah,
Maybe not the best comparison, but it was another one that I thought of.
yeah. I
considering
mean,
just how close they were released.
I didn't want to like bring in Nosferatu for that comparison. Only specifically the Invisible Man 2020 and Wolfman 2025. It is kind of because like it just makes you wonder
Yeah.
if they had plans to do some kind of like, I think Universal may have like thought like, oh hey, Invisible Man was a pretty safe bet and it paid off really well for them, at the time. So it's like, hey, maybe we could repeat that success with Wolfman, and who knows, maybe like do more of it, more stuff like that with the other monsters down the line. But yeah, like obviously that didn't quite pan out as well, because apparently like
Yeah.
Leigh Whannell wasn't even part of the Wolfman project until like a little over a month before they started shooting. I think I'm not even sure. Like that's crazy. Like he wasn't even supposed to be part of it at first, but then they just brought him in. It's like, yo, you remember that Invisible Man movie you did? Do it again with here. Like who knows what was going on? I mean,
What I can't believe is that fucking Ryan Gosling was involved at some point. Like,
yeah,
wow.
it makes you wonder. It makes you wonder, like, if that would have looked better. To be honest, like, I'm not even sure.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
We'll see. Now with this, I'm even more interested to see what's going to happen with Wong's Creature from the Black Lagoon remake.
Oh God, I hope it's good.
Please.
I don't think.
I mean,
it's gonna be.
he did a good job with the brief trench sequences in Aquaman. So, I hope.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's actually, you know what? I remember something that when we were talking about the Wolfman, I didn't remember. The Wolfman did to, well, the Wolfman, what the remake of the Leprechaun did to the Leprechaun. If you have not, like, have you seen that thing?
The Leprechaun remake? No, I've never
Oh.
seen any I've only seen like bits of like the original Leprechaun, which is funny because it was like on the night of a St. Patrick's night or something. So that was funny. That's
Okay.
funny.
But basically, they just turned him into a goblin, like a scary goblin, but like very shitty with like very bad budgeting, and that's why it reminds me so much of the Wolfman. And I didn't realize. So, if you can, like, just take a little peek at the remake of the Leprechaun, like, you'll see it's very similar to the Wolfman.
Yeah, let me try that. Is it Leprechaun Origins?
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, let me pull that up here. Leprechaun. Oh yeah, it's played by like a WWE guy, Hornswoggle.
Yeah.
Okay, let me pull that. Let me pull that. Wow. He looks more. He looks more. What the? What? How is that a fucking leprechaun? What the hell is this? I thought I was looking at one of the crawlers from The Descent.
What the fuck? What the fuck? What is this?
Well,
Oh God!
I see the comparison.
Leprechaun.
Oh God! I wish there was like
see
a way
the comparison.
Oh God! I wish there was a way to screen share this. Like I don't even.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God!
Yo,
So anyone
people,
watching
okay.
this video in post, look this up.
Yeah, look up Leprechaun Origins Leprechaun and tell us in the comments section, does that look like a fucking leprechaun to you?
Yeah, like one of the first images that comes up on my feed is the crawler from The Descent.
They have an image of
It doesn't even look human. Where's the facial hair?
Well, here's the thing: the leprechaun isn't supposed to technically be human or resemble a human.
I know,
He's only
but
a freaky
I know, but
creature.
they all. I know, but
Jesus
it's
Christ.
consistently had. I know, but it's consistently had a human look. It's a twisted version of what we would traditionally believe a leprechaun looks like in folklore. This isn't that. This
Yeah.
is a demon.
What is this?
Well, but
Jesus
the thing is,
Christ.
it looks as much as a leprechaun as the Wolfman looks as a werewolf. So like maybe they're cousins.
Dude, even the wolf. Dude, I swear, I'm telling you, like even Wolfman, 2025 Wolfman design looks more like a Wolfman than this Leprechaun does to Leprechaun. Like I'll go. Yeah, I'll leave. This might be maybe a hot take. I don't give a shit. Like Wolfman 2025, like it's like okay, maybe like he's got like less hair, a lot less hairy than usual, but maybe with like maybe some like some like the way that like the face looks a little stretched, like it's kind of like a mutated human, with like longer nails and freakier teeth and what have you. And maybe like a nose that's like more mutated in, kind of. Like even that, like I'm looking at this the leprechaun. What am I looking? I thought Google was like playing a joke on me here. Like, what is this?
Jesus
I know. I have
Christ.
bestowed upon you the knowledge.
Oh,
Honestly,
God.
oh my god. I haven't seen any of these movies, but I question the design philosophy behind this.
Behind the nuke, this Leprechaun Origins. I almost said new, but it's like no, it came out like 10 years ago. God damn.
Boy. Yeah.
I mean, that's probably a good place to end what may very well be might be the shortest Sea Monster live stream I've done. Jesus Christ. Not even an hour and a half long.
I think there's been shorter, but we'll see.
No, my stream. No, like the shortest before this was the discussion on Nosferatu 2024 that you and I were part of Minecraft, and that was like an hour. That was like an hour and 32 minutes. This is like shorter than that. So.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah,
because I participated in shorter streams, so I know that.
Yeah, maybe on other channels, but
yeah, on other channels. Anyways, yeah, I think it's good. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
We should probably end it off.
I guess like if anyone wants to do any plugs here, I guess I'll just do mine first. Currently working on the supercut of the Adam Does Movies and Nosferatu stream.
Oh no!
Yeah, I'm halfway done with it. Like,
no!
Here's the thing. It's like shortened. Like I'm cutting down like as much fat as like what needs to be cut down, pretty much. But good Lord, there's just so much. It's just so much.
Yeah, I've been considering doing a Adam Does Movies in a similar style to what Animus did with Hannes, just breaking down why Adam's style is a problem, like the problem with Adam and his style.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And speaking of Brutally Heinous, next stream, which is on Saturday the 8th, earlier in that day than when this stream started, like 12 noon or maybe a little earlier, on the 8th, we're going to be having Brutally Heinous and Brutally Heinous himself on to kind of like have a little chat,
Wait, he's coming?
Yeah.
Oh, he's coming.
He did what?
You walked into that one, Lau. I'm sorry.
Look. I'm not ashamed because Optimus Prime taught me since I was little to let them come.
Sound
no,
words, Peter Cullen.
I wasn't even like thinking of Optimus Prime. I was just referencing Nosferatu. But yeah, that's good enough. But yeah, Optimus Prime. That's fine as well.
Okay.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is funny.
But
Slap
so just to
everybody.
clarify, are you like serious? Like, Brutally Hannes is actually like.
Yeah, he's gonna come
coming to a
on.
stream?
He's coming on Saturday.
Ah, okay, nice.
So yeah, I arranged it with him, and yeah, he said he'd be good to come on for group discussion and so on. We'll just just kind of talk about the MonsterVerse and what have you. So yeah,
Yeah.
there it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That trip is.
That's nice because like as I said, like there are a lot of things in which like we feel the same way. For example, the fact that it's frustrating that anything could happen because trying to predict stuff doesn't make sense. Like everything's just kind of.
By the way, did you
Well-
watch his part 3?
Yeah. We don't necessarily need to. We could probably address that in the upcoming stream, but I don't. I
was
don't-
mostly
I don't think
asking Lau if he watched it.
No, I actually didn't even know that he had already released the third part. I watched the first one and
Yeah.
the second one. That's all.
Yeah. I know you were on stream for the second one, and I'm pretty sure for both the first and second one. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd recommend you do that before the discussion if you're going to join for that.
Okay.
I know I will. Yeah. For me, Nemesis essay. I'm working on that. Godzilla the Arrival pitch Redux. I'm working on that. I actually did a bit more work on the outline for Godzilla the Arrival. And yeah, I just finished the sequence where Sam talks to Godzilla. Like Sam meets up with Godzilla in the Coliseum. And is now being interrogated by Monarch. So yay.
Cool.
And I've also been playing Sonic Shadow Generations, which has been fun. So,
Cool.
yeah. But yeah, go check out that game. Also, the new Mothra comic releases today. The first
Oh,
issue
when?
of that.
Yeah, the one with Matt Frank and was it Donnie Winters? That's also.
Oh,
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it releases today. I need to order that or find a way to read it because I have been incredibly hyped for that comic. Very much. The design is my second favorite Mothra design behind Titanus Masura. So yeah. And Tiamat deserved better. Bye.
Right? Well, I don't have much to say. Well, actually, I finished writing the first episode for the Singular Point show like some time ago, and I'm trying to see, if I can like change some things before I start writing the second one. I have basically also like improved some things on the pitch that I had for an alternative Monarch type of style show. And yeah, like I'm also trying to, get to finish those things. So far, that's all. Not much else. Oh, and for comics, Transformers Skybound is surprisingly good. So even if you don't like Transformers, you should give it a try. It's really, really nice.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah, and I guess if there's any recommendations from me, I'm actually currently playing through Star Wars Republic Commando. So having fun with that. Geonosians are a little annoying though, but fun game. But thank you all for coming, and not like that. But
I have come.
Thanks for hopping on, stopping by, whatever. I'm not gonna say that other term, okay? At least, or try not to. And I guess look up that Leprechaun Origins, Leprechaun shit. Because Jesus Christ.
Go watch The Descent.
Yeah, go watch The Descent. That's better than both better than both of Leigh Whannell's Universal Monsters Blumverse movies. Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yes, me. Good night, folks.
Good night. Bye.
Coming.